Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Kathy K Walk Comedy, whatever you want to call me, and we are going with this live challenge. And I know I had told myself I'm going to start at 6 and just 6:30 do like a 20 to 30-minute stream and keep it tight and work on my podcast. But in addition to being a content creator and working on a podcast that I do every week with my brother, Pop Culture Kids, I'm also an assistant principal at a very busy middle school, and we are in the last 6 days of school. And can I just say, middle schoolers be crazy. I seriously think that there was some kind of TikTok challenge or something. I had two separate incidences with sixth grade girls, like three or four of them jumping and hitting on uh, a boy. Like what? Have you lost your mind? So yeah, it's just been. I call it Project Hags. Have a great summer because you just bought your ticket out of this building with that kind of nonsense. But anyway, so I came home from work and I just had to adjust. And I think that's the thing. Even when you're doing challenges, when you're doing content creation, uh, you have a life. You have to make sure you find that balance. I needed some time to kind of clear my mind because even though I didn't get home till well after 5 and I wanted to go live at 6, I just was not in the right headspace. And I'm still irritated by the children misbehaving this so close to summer, but all is good. All is good. One of the things I've been doing all week with this live challenge, and if you don't know about this challenge, you can check out more information at ecamm.com, at ecamm live site, as well as Pat Flynn's SPI, Smart Passive Income. But it was a 7-day challenge. And I know Pat Flynn had earlier this year did a 30-day shorts challenge, and I started it and I kind of fizzled out at about day 15 or 16. And then I get into that mindset of, oh wait, I missed a day, so instead of getting back on the horse, I kind of dropped off. And then he had a 14-day challenge, and I was like, okay, you know what, 14 days I can handle. And I did the 14-day challenge and even continued it out to about 20 days. Probably would have kept it up, uh, but again, as I mentioned, we're at the end of the school year. A lot of things, a lot of different responsibilities. One of which, for me, is testing. I don't recommend it. I hate state testing. I know that's not a good thing for a public educator to say, but to have everybody's life and livelihood and kids' self esteem and everything all wrapped into one test on one day it's a little much. But that is not the point of this live stream. I have been building this podcast in public, and I wanted to actually start recording some of the segments for the podcast because even though I do a live podcast with my brother and we kind of do it live, I cut it down for like the audio version for bits and pieces of it. And some of it gets aired on what's called Who's Got Next Radio. But I I mean, we do it live and it just go with the flow. But for this particular project, which is going to be a part of the Pop Culture Kids channel, we did an episode about Tina Marie, why she should be in the Hall of Fame. I think she should be in the Hall of Fame. So I figured, you know what? If I devoted like 14 episodes of a podcast to Tina Marie, I don't have a title for it. And interestingly enough, I was listening to Katie. Katie Creates is her channel, and she was talking today about just some of the basics. What do you need to get started? Well, as far as equipment, I mean, I have equipment. I am like a little bit of a tech geek nerd, something I carried with me ever since I was a DJ back in the 80s, hauling around albums. And that's another frustrating thing too, because I had every Tina Marie album, lost a bunch of them in a flood I had years ago in a basement. Um, I'm in the middle of getting repaired for another flood in my new home, but I won't go into those details because I might start to cry waiting for this insurance company to just pay out the money so they can come fix my floors. Because the bad part is they ripped up the floors, the floorboards, and everything, and even took the door. Like, there's no door in my bathroom, so nobody can use the guest bathroom. But I digress. Anyway, um, I wanted to do this mini pod, but I was listening to Katie today in her live stream, and I realized I don't have a title. And one of the things I've been actually kind of been guiding by this kind of free resource that I got from Captivate, and that is one of the paid like podcast hosts you can use. I know Buzzsprout is one I've used for other podcasts I did. I've done a couple of episodes, about 8 episodes, specifically geared towards assistant principals, and that's when I was named North Carolina's Assistant Principal of the Year. And I figure, how'd that happen? And what is it that I know, or what could I learn that would help other assistant principals? So I went and interviewed everybody from teachers to instructional coaches to directors in our district, just to get a sense and ask the questions that would help someone who wanted to become an assistant principal. But for this podcast, it kind of sprung from a conversation my brother and I had about Tina Marie. I am such a huge fan. I had such passion after we finished that podcast that it made me want to create these mini podcasts. This one's going to be different because I'd like to just record it and do it as an edited video, upload it to YouTube, as well as taking the audio and editing that so that I can submit it to the different podcast hosts. And when Katie was talking about that today, it got my mind thinking. I really don't have a title for the podcast. I'm thinking that it would be, again, it's going to go under the Pop Culture Kids banner, but like a wild and peaceful podcast. Or I'm focusing each week on each of the different albums. I have my 4 segments, and today I wanted to spend some time working on some of the research for the second segment. I know I said yesterday I was going to start filming, but I realized I I wasn't camera ready today, and my mind, these middle schoolers are messing up my mind. My mind wasn't camera ready today. And I think even with live streaming, you have to know, you have to be in the zone. And I know for me, it's easier for me to jump into the zone. I've had experience as a stand up comedian, as well as a wedding DJ, and even community theater actress. And I know there have been days where I have not wanted to be in front of an audience, but the beauty and the benefit to me of acting is that you have somebody else's words. Now, when you go live, it's your words, it's your emotions. But that to me, I think, is the fun part, is the joy, because it's not scripted. You're kind of flying by the seat of your pants, and you're going with the flow. You're going with the comments as they come in. And it, there's a beauty in that. There's a beauty in that you won't get from an AI generated script or anything like that. So, yes, filming will be a part of this 7-day series, but I know enough about me to know that today's not the day. It's not a good hair day. It's just, and it's just, I'm like an emotional wreck. I tell you, I had to test some kids this morning, and then had to deal with, I had about 8 parents I had to talk to. And I will say I was thankful that the parents were understanding, because, you know, and the girls were like, "Oh, it ain't no big deal. They're not going to get in trouble for it." And I'm thinking, "No, you're bye bye. You're getting suspended because I'm done. We're not going to be fighting people." And the worst part is, I think somebody might have recorded it. So that's probably the live streaming I don't want to see. But this live streaming, I think, could be helpful. But one of the things that I wanted to do today, I still need to work on that title. And I know I have been researching, and I I tell you, I will not get mired in the research, but I do want to have good enough research. So I just kind of created a Google Sheet just because I already know the four areas that I want to talk about on each episode of the podcast. And like I said, it's going to be 20 to 30 minutes. So I'm giving each of these spots maybe 3 to 5 minutes to talk about the point, which is the stats. And I know for this particular album was actually released on Valentine's Day, February 14th. So I'm just going to write that. And it was also on the Motown label, Gordy, I think the Gordy label, which, if you know anything about records, it was like a um, purple with like a yellow center to it. I wonder if I could find one of those labels online to show you. But in any case, it was a release from Motown, February 14th, 1980. And Lady T was a little different. The first album was produced by Rick James. In doing some research, I found out that she actually was signed to Motown back in 1976, but that first album didn't come out till 79. And part of it was Motown didn't have a lot of white artists, and the ones they had, and I actually was reading some research that said Soupy Sales was on Motown at one point. Go figure. But in any case, they had a few white artists, but with Tina Marie, they didn't know how to package her. And I think that was a big thing with Motown. It was all about, oh, how do we package these artists? If you remember, if you watched that movie, Michael, or remember the early days, again, it was all about, if you watch that miniseries about the Jacksons, it was all about the packaging. And I think for her, they didn't know what to do with her till she got with Rick James, and Rick James was able to again, find a rhythm for her with that Wild and Peaceful album, which is the first one that I talk about. But for this particular album, she had a different producer. For Lady T, the second album, it was produced by Richard Rudolph. And Richard Rudolph, as I mentioned before, was the widower of Minnie Rippleton. That was Minnie Rippleton's husband and Maya Rudolph's father, who, again, people probably know her probably even more than her mom. Not many people remember Minnie Rippleton, but again, if you have heard her music, she had an incredibly high octave and range, and just this beautiful, amazing voice. But, and again, this is me music nerding out. Uh, she also sang with a group called Rotary Connection. Now, this you got to Spotify. So, again, I don't know for two of you are watching live, so I thank you for being here. But the band was called Rotary Connection, and the song is actually labeled as "Peace at Last," but it's like actually in the lyrics, it's singing all about Santa Claus and talking about Santa Claus being high, and it's quite, I think, funny and amusing. And if you, like me, grew up on R&B radio stations like WDAS in Philadelphia or WBLS in New York City, you know exactly what I'm talking about. This is not news to you. But anyway, Minnie Rippleton sang on this group called Rotary Connection, Peace at Last. Spotify it, Google it, come back, let me know. Am I crazy? But Richard Rudolph was the producer of the Lady T album. And one of the things that uh, in in my research is finding all the tracks that are on that album. And on that particular album, it's not like Wild and Peaceful. Wild and Peaceful only has 6 songs, 3 wild songs or fast songs, and 3 kind of slow songs, ballads. This one had about 9 songs, so it was quite a mix. So I'm going to add those to my spreadsheet here. And let me bring that back, and so I can share that with you as I add again, in my different sections, the point. Oh, also, I wanted to make note that this album also, I believe it reached. Uh, oh, I can't spell. It reached. I had did some research. I think it reached number 6 on the. By this time, it was called the Black Chart um, for Billboard, and and it also, or no, I'm sorry, it reached number 6 uh, in the UK, which was her highest, I guess, UK charting album. Okay, the tracks on this particular album. Uh, let's see, undo. Is there a way I can get them all in? No. It's not gonna let me do it. Okay. Let me wrap. Okay. So the tracks were Behind the Groove, that was written by her and Richard Rudolph. Now That I Have You, Lonely Desire, Aladdin's Lamp, and the B sides are All the Boogie I Need, Can It Be Love, Young Girl in Love, Why Did I Have to Fall in Love with You, and Too Many Colors. And you see why this album probably was released on Valentine's Day. Lots of love going on for this particular album. For some reason, um, when I switch to showing the screenshot, it's not showing you my live. Oh, now it seems like it updated it just now. When I go to change the scene, then it kind of updated where I fill in the tracks. One of the other things that I have as a feature of the podcast is to talk about the low, which is low key one of my favorite tracks. Now, as far as R&B hits, Beyond the Groove was probably more of a hit. Uh, Aladdin's Lamp also got a lot of R&B, I think, airplay. And I know my perspective is probably skewed because I think in Philadelphia, uh, DAS, they probably played more Tina than anywhere in the country, I believe. But I could be wrong. If I am, let me know in the comments. But low key, I know for me, I always love the song Lonely Desire. And usually I pick for the low key kind of like my favorite track that you might know. But I think for this one, I'm going to talk about Too Many Colors. And why Too Many Colors? Because as I mentioned before, the producer was Maya Rudolph's um, vocal cameo. Okay, the producer was Maya Rudolph's father, and in this particular song, at the end, you hear like a 7-year-old Maya Rudolph uh, delivering a line because Too Many Colors. It's a very short, only 3-minute long song, but at the end, you hear like this little talking bit, which is quite popular, I think, in R&B music. And on this particular thing, you hear Maya Rudolph's asking her, Tina, I wish the world. Oh wait, I forgot her line now. Why can't the world be? No, I wish every year was the year of the child, anyway, it's just this little cute little back and forth between Tina Marie and Maya Rudolph, and that's in that song "Too Many Colors." Again, I'm hoping by sharing some of these facts on the podcast, it will get people interested in her music, give her a bump. Will it be a bump like, Michael Jackson got on Spotify with the release of that biopic? Probably not. But her daughter is in the works of trying to put together a biopic about her life. A lot of speculation about who should play her. My brother believes it should be Ariana Grande. I think there's an actress named Summer Rona who actually portrayed Tina Marie in a stage show off Broadway that was up in Harlem that ran several years ago. I didn't find out about it till afterwards because had I known, again, knowing me, I would have hauled my butt up to New York to see it because, again, I'm that kind of fan. I'm a little bit nuts, and I'll give myself that. Uh, let's see. And the last segment that I usually focus on uh, for this podcast will be what's called the deal. And basically, the deal is my personal reflection about the album. And again, for this album, I'm trying to think of the song that resonates most with me because Behind the Groove is just got this amazing bass line. Now, Alan McGreer was her bassist on a lot of these early Motown tracks. And I mean, his bass lines just slap. And that is going to be the hard part to talk about this music without playing it because of copyright issues. But again, my hope and my desire is to strike up enough interest and passion that people go and check it out. I know one of my favorites used to be Lonely Desire was one of those songs I would play over and over again. I hope that doesn't say uh, too much about me that's negative. Um, and just for the collaborate, again, my personal notes, and I think I already mentioned them, is the fact that, hey, we had an early guest appearance from Maya Rudolph on this particular album. Also, the producer. But one of the things that I think Tina Marie struggled with was that creative control. But on this album, she's writing a lot of these songs. She has co-writers on some of them, but it wouldn't be till I think the album that I first discovered or my first Tina Marie purchase is, I believe it must be Magic, which is 2 albums later. But that whole creative control too is going to spark an interesting conversation because by the time we get to, I believe, episode 7, I can talk about the Brockett Initiative, which is her real name was, I think, Christina Marie Brockett, and she waged a lawsuit against Motown, which is pretty well known. And actually, you know what, all these young whippersnappers today are benefiting from it because with this lawsuit, because at one point Motown had her under contract and kind of under lock and key and not allowing her to release new music. So there was a period of time where she didn't release music because of contract disputes and being held by Motown for like 3 or 4 years in the early 80s. But she waged this lawsuit, and it's been called kind of like I think the Brockett Initiative or the Tina Marie Law, which again doesn't allow record companies to hold you and as a signed artist without releasing your music. So, in more than one ways, this woman has been influential, and again, why she should be in the Rock and Roll of Fame. That's all I'm saying. So, again, for today, I wanted to just focus on some more of that research as I build up this particular spreadsheet to kind of uh, secure where I want to go for each episode, for each of the 4 things for each episode. Um, One of the things I wanted to look into was setting up setting up the podcast uh, and kind of creating a podcast home, I know I have used Buzzsprout. So maybe that's one thing we can kind of take a look at. And uh, let me change the screen so we can actually create this podcast so it has some place to live. It's going to live on the Pop Culture Kids YouTube channel, but also let's go to the screen. I'm actually in uh, logged into Buzzsprout. I have an account, and you can see I have two podcasts. One is called New Educator Notes, and that's kind of a project that's kind of been sitting on hold. It's where that used to be the project I had my assistant principal interviews on, and that show was very much devoted to interviews. And here's the power of podcasts, because when I first started that, a guy in, I believe in Baltimore, heard my podcast. I believe his name was Jamie. He heard the podcast and connected with me, and we talked. And I think he connected because he had very similar experiences as far as working a corporate job and being a creative. Because again, I talked in the first episode about how I worked for like Colgate Palmolive, Morgan Stanley, Dean Witter, corporate accounting, serious, serious jobs. And then but I also did stand up comedy and community theater and other passion projects. And I had that side of me. But again, post 9/11, I had turned to education, to more of a service job. And he had a similar story. So we talked and I interviewed him. And it was just so cool and so freeing. And just the power of these mediums. And that was before, it wasn't even a video podcast, it was just like a straight on podcast, just the droning sound of my voice. But anyway, so I'm going to go ahead and create a new podcast. And Kathy's podcast, no, I still need a name. I still need a name. Uh, like the Lady T podcast, that sounds so lame. I don't know. Maybe the one person who's listening right now can can help me out and tell me if you have a good idea for what I could call my podcast. Now, again, the point to scam, the low the deal. I don't know whether people would know what that would be. So I think I do have the. I'm just gonna for now call it the Lady Pod Tea Podcast. Tina Marie is an epic artist whose of work is one that should be, I think, should be, I'm going to say honored. I can't spell. And recognized in the Hall of Fame. I invite voters to listen to this 14-week podcast series to make the case album by album. And if you're not a voter, just listen and learn about one of the best kept secrets in all of R&B. All right. All right. So, and again, with a tool like Buzzsprout, and I haven't been in it in so long, it just makes it pretty easy to at least have your. One of the things I like about Buzzsprout is it does make it easy to um, have your podcast broadcast to um, well, Spotify, like all the places that are podcast friendly. Although for this podcast, because it is going to be a video podcast as well, I think it will be posted, and I will be including it on YouTube. But let's see if I can. Wait a minute. Let me go back. All right. So now that I set up the Lady T podcast, the one thing that I haven't created is a thumbnail for it. So I am going to have to go back and create a thumbnail, and that's probably work I can do tomorrow. So for tomorrow's live stream, we will work on making the podcast thumbnail, which is a slightly different aspect ratio than a YouTube thumbnail. And well, the nice thing about Canva too is that with some of their templates, I can take like an existing thumbnail and use it to make a podcast thumbnail. And chances are I need to grab a photo because that's what is going to draw people in. So yeah, a little bit of creating in public. I'm not going to hold you, but I am planning to record the first episode. I think I have all the information on an earlier live stream. I actually bulleted the script of that one. So maybe with tomorrow's co-working session, now that I've kind of filled out my little research template in that Google sheet, I will go through and do some bullets for the script for the second episode. Now, here is my plan. Is it the right plan? Is it the best plan? We are not sure. I am thinking about releasing I actually set the first release date was going to be June 1st, but I was going to do episode 1 Wild and Peaceful on June 1st, episode 2 the following week, but I'm actually hoping to record the first 3 episodes, which would be Wild and Peaceful, Lady T, and Irons in the Fire are the first 3 albums. So ideally I want to have all those for a YouTube release date on June 1st. And this is where I'm getting into the strategy part. And if you know good strategy, maybe you can help me because I'm just making this crap up as I go along. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm not making it up. I'm going by kind of years of all kinds of information I've gained from resources and friends within uh, the live community, especially the ecamm fam. But actually, I did look at one of these YouTube gurus who talked about like releasing like 3 videos at a time, especially after a long lapse on the channel. But want to release the first 3 episodes of the podcast so that way I know they're in the can, and that gives me a week to kind of flush out, and especially for some of the later albums, because I mean I am going to be honest, I am old, 60 years, so I've been listening to my girl Tina since 1979, but I'm probably more versed in the Motown albums and the early Epic albums because after Motown, she left Motown, she went to Epic. And what's interesting is I think several people have done that, including the Jacksons. When they left Motown, well, they were the Jackson Five, but when they left, they became the Jacksons, but they went to Epic. And so did, I believe, Gladys Knight and the Pips, if I'm not sure. But, well, no, Gladys Knight and the Pips, when they first left Motown, because they left pretty early. But anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. I squirrel hard. I squirrel hard, and I thank you so much for staying with me for it. But anyway, from Epic, and then she went on to Stax and Cash Money Records, and then I think there was a couple other record companies because some of the later albums, like La Donna, and even the release after her death that her daughter kind of put together to release some of her music after her death called Beautiful. Those albums I'm not as familiar with, and I will tell you why. I think especially when I lived in New York, and your Walkman. So yes, I'm dating myself. Was everything when you're on the subway and you didn't want the crazy to bother you. You just put your headphones on, put your head down, open up your book. But and that would work. At least it worked for me. Never mugged, never attacked, never raped, and I lived there for 13 years. But um, I think I listened to a lot of more of her Motown stuff and epic stuff as opposed to some of the later stuff, probably because I didn't have the huge commute. Once I was down in North Carolina, I don't think I've ever had a commute to work to any of the schools I've worked at that was more than like 15 minutes. So that's that. But, and again, when I'm just chilling or listening, I don't seem to do it as much, and I think when I was a city dweller and in my car for hours or on the train or whatever, I think I did ingest more music. So it's probably going to take me a little longer to do the later episodes in this season because I'm going to have to go back and re-listen, give those albums a good thorough re-listen, and that might require a little more research because I don't know whether there's going to be as much information about those albums. But hey, today we showed you a little Buzzsprout, how easy and simple it is to create a podcast, and I think you can do a certain amount of uploads with Buzzsprout for free for some of their more advanced features where they are able to enhance audio and actually do some other tricks. Well, that does cost up to $18 a month, or it can get pricey. And if you're doing more than, let's say, 3 or 4 episodes a month, and the length of the episodes also are going to factor in as well, of what you can get from Buzzsprout for free. So just be mindful of that. Yeah, j- So just so you know, but tomorrow we'll work on the podcast thumbnail, which again is smaller than the YouTube thumbnail, but we'll work on that and what that will look like for this passion project. Anyway, I thank you so much for being a part of day 5. Day 5, day 5. Yay! Day 5 is done. It's done. 2 more days to go. I'm kind of happy I stuck with it. That's good for me. You don't know. I am so squirrel. Well, you do know if you've been listening because I've been all over the place. But thank you so much for watching. Appreciate it. Appreciate it. Appreciate you. And and you know what? Live is just what I needed to get me out of that middle school brain because I was middle school braining hard at the top of this live stream. Thanks for watching. Take care.